Hello, hello, hello. This is Dr. Troy.
And I'm Ben-Jamin Toy.
We're broadcasting from the Cohesion Culture headquarters in beautiful Charleston, South Carolina, where even when it rains, the sun still shines.
You're going to hear real-time stories from leaders confessing their most crucial or recent uh-oh experiences in business.
Learn what their uh-oh cost them, steps they took to fix it, and how they planned
to not do that one again. All right. We are joined with Michael Lounsbury, and somebody who's probably becoming one of my better friends. We were connected, and as my business expands to the upstate, I've been just networking with folks, and so I've been really excited to connect with Michael.
So he's now friend number 3.
Yeah, yes, exactly. I mean, it's like, people say, hey, you'll go here, you'll meet new friends. I'm like, well, I already have one.
So why would you want any more?
Yeah.
But Michael fell into the trap of becoming your friend. Okay.
Yeah. So we have a tradition here. So Michael, tell us and the audience something about you that's not on your resume. We'll get into the other things. We just
right,
of
course. It's a two-part. So one is I'm a published author. So I wrote a book titled Never Accept Defeat. It's a memoir about my life. And then also in 2010 and 2011, I tried out for American Idol and The Voice. So big into music and musical theater. So that's something that's not quite on the resume.
Awesome.
Interesting. So when you tried out, how far did you get in either of the shows?
That's a great question. So I did American Idol first, and I was young, and I was so nervous. So I botched it. I was terrible, off key. So I got eliminated first round on the prelims, but I met Ryan Seacrest, so that was cool. And then The Voice, I actually made it, got picked, but then I made it to the third round before TV. So not too far. And then after that, I just kind of let it go by the wayside.
So it just sort of demonstrates that you practice a little bit, you can see how much you can improve, right?
Absolutely. There was a really big difference between, 2010 and 2011 from American Idol to The Voice.
I mean, just really, if you think about that, imagine like people who quit like after the first time, like, oh, I have a no and I quit. You didn't quit after the first no. You didn't necessarily go back to the same place, but you took what you learned and went somewhere else. So great for you. Good for you. Kudos, Michael.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd say consistency is key just really in anything in life.
Yeah, it's great. Well, why don't you start out now that we've learned a little bit about you, which is something we call connections before content. And it's part of the fact that in our Cohesion Culture program, we talk about the 3 strategic elements of cohesion, which are belonging, which leads to inclusion, value, which is meaningful work, and mutual commitment, which is collaboration, which operates around the area of need and trust. So kind of figuring and thinking all those things out, we know that people feel included when they tell something personal about themselves, when it's not just about the business, like we certainly are going to be about the business, but it's just that introduction and leading up to it. So thanks for giving us some great feedback for there. So why don't you start out by telling us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
So, Michael Lounsbury, and so I do HR. I actually started my HR career back in 2014 when I joined the Army. It was a total mistake. I actually shipped infantry first and then found out I was colorblind. And so they're like, hey, guess what? You can't be colorblind. And at the time, I was homeless. So I was sleeping in my recruiter's office. And he was like, hey, if you want to get out of here in 3 weeks or in 2 weeks, you got 3 options: supply, cook, HR. I was like, okay, well, I guess we're doing HR. So I did 3.5 years in the Army. I got out and I realized I liked HR, but I only knew military HR. I didn't know civilian HR. And when you're getting out of the military, they tell you, hey, everybody wants to hire you. Everybody loves veterans. Like it's gonna be smooth sailing. Not the case. Couldn't be farther from the truth. And so I had to start off at the generalist level. But over the course of 6 years, I moved into 4 different companies and went from generalist to CHRO. And then in June of 23, I realized corporate HR, corporate America Not a huge fan of, because it's all on the reactive side, right? Hey, HR, you go put a band-aid on this. You got to go fire somebody. You got to go write someone up. Like, you fix this problem. But corporate America isn't as open to HR being proactive and suggesting things to make things better on the front side instead of the back side. So that was kind of the purpose and the reason behind People Ops Advisors, which is my HR consulting firm. And what that is that's bridging the gap. That's showing people, showing employers that the number one asset for any company, regardless of what it is the people. So showing that employee retention, employee relations, and how to be proactive as far as tracking KPIs, but also being able to talk with people like people.
Yeah, you're speaking our language.
Absolutely. I mean, this is also, reason why I think we're so well connected. What characteristics that do you possess, though, that make this role for you jive quite well and give you energy? Like, who are you that make this role be a good fit for you?
Absolutely, that's a good question. So I'm a big teddy bear. I'm 6'7". Okay, but I love people, and I just feel we're at work more than we're at home, right? Like, these are our, second, third families of who we're with all the time. So, like, my heart is people. My heart is trying to make things better just across the board. Now, that doesn't mean we can't have tough conversations. That doesn't mean there's not accountability, right? You can be assertive without being aggressive. That's one of my number one sayings, is you can be assertive without being aggressive. So we can have conversations, we can do the tough things, but we can also do it in a way that's a win-win, that promotes people.
Yeah, which is really great. So let's start off with your experience. So again, we are speaking to individuals, our listeners, our people who are employed, who have a feeling of being dissatisfied, maybe with their current employer, because they're either not getting the type of training and development that they need, or they're not seeing those opportunities available to them, or maybe they're being passed over for promotion and they're not getting any plan for success, like what this would look like to kind of move me from one step to the next. So Ben and I have been on a mission of trying to help these individuals become cohesive leaders, kind of part of our cohesion culture program. So your experience now, I think, will be very helpful for individuals listening, because we can learn. So there's a couple of ways we learn. We learn through mentoring, or we learn through mistakes. So today we're going to have a combination of both. And so might come up with a new word, but I don't know what that word will be yet, but it's mentoring and mistakes. So Michael, tell us a little bit about your, wait a minute. Tell us a little bit about your experience.
So I think it's actually, so I have one from a business owner side, but then I also have one of an employee side. So I think it's important to go from the employee to the employer, just to relay the information. So from an employee side, I think one of the biggest issues in America, regardless of industry, regardless of state, regardless of where you're at, size of company, is the fact of complacency and being stagnant, right? As employees, we are afraid to speak up on behalf of ourselves because, we don't want to lose our jobs. We got a lot of bills, we have people to provide for. I mean, most of America statistically is on a paycheck to paycheck basis. So when it comes time to annual raises, right, we're just like, oh, okay, I got a 2% raise. That's good. I'm still here. Like, I'm still making money. But then when you leave and they bring someone else in, they're bringing them in, 5, 8, 10% above what you were making, which doesn't make any sense. So my moment as I was starting my career early after the military was just being okay with that complacency and being okay with being looked over and looked past when that's not okay. Because in reality, and you guys know just as well as I do, it costs way more to replace you than it does to train you and make you feel valued. So once I realized that for myself, I was like, you know what? I'm just another number to these people. I'm going to do what's best for me. Now, obviously, I wasn't putting anyone down, throwing anyone under the bus, but I thought for the longest time that I was irreplaceable, that I was not valuable. And then when I left, literally the next week, they already had a replacement in. And I was like, I sat here for so long, giving everything I could for this company, When in reality, again, for them, it was just, hey, you know what? We have a body and they're filling the spot. So my uh-oh moment was not realizing my worth, not realizing my value. And I think that is the biggest problem that society has today. Like, you have value. You are worth something. You are more than just a body. If you, even if you're at a warehouse, if you're at a manufacturing plant, right? You are more than just someone doing this thing. Like, you have value. And I think that is the biggest thing from an employee side, which is probably more relevant to this discussion. But for the sake of telling you my business owner, is when I first started my business, I try to be the jack of all trades from an HR standpoint. Now, being a one man band, that's very difficult. So I tried to do everything. So that was benefits, payroll, total rewards, HR, handbooks, investigations, surveys, you name it. I was like, I'll do it. I just need business because I got to pay bills. But I realized that was not the right way to go. I realized I needed to refine and come up with my niche where I strived, but also where my passion lied. That way, the output was way higher of a quality than just having that general base.
Got it. So, what did this uh-oh cost you in terms of either money or opportunity? I think I have an idea and we probably could figure it out based on what you said, but I'll just hear from you. Like, what was the cost to you for this uh-oh experience?
I mean, money for sure for raises, and that's just not just annual raises, but based on, like I said, my output and what I was doing. But time, time was probably the biggest waste of time that I had, was because, I, at the time, I had a young child, right? I had a wife, and I was getting home at 5 p.m. from work, going in at 7, and then getting called back in at 8 and staying there till 2 in the morning. So I was missing this time with my family because I was trying to be everything that they wanted me to be, even though they weren't valuing me. And I didn't know my own value. So since I didn't know my own value, I didn't know that it was wrong. I didn't know that I had better potential, higher potential, and that, I don't want to say taking advantage because that's not the right word. But once I realized what I brought to the table, I realize I'm going to go to the table where they value me instead of just staying at this table where they feel like they can walk over me.
So, in the transition question of what did you do to stop that, and from the employee standpoint, what I have a follow up question, but it's going to be based on how you answer the next one. This part is, what did you do once you realized that and you realized you're the number? What did you do to fix that part?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've always been a decently confrontational guy, but in a respectful way. So some people don't like that,
Okay,
right? A lot.
Michael, before you go on, what does decently confrontational mean?
Right. Okay. So what that means is, if something is wrong or if I'm not comfortable with something, I have no issue addressing someone, whether that be a coworker or a superior, regarding the situation. I know
Okay, great.
a lot of people
Great.
obviously don't like confrontation. So what I did is I went to my boss and I said, "Hey," and I pulled out KPIs, right? Because we all have things we have to put out and what we had to compare it to. And I said, "Hey, this is what I'm doing, right? This is where you're paying me." I knew what was being paid before. I knew what was being offered when I took the position, right? So I was like, I think there's a disconnect here. And I had studies and I had information and I had it all in a nice case file. And I was like, what do I need to do to get from where I am to where I believe I should be? And it wasn't out of the question. So they're like, well, everybody gets 2%. I can maybe get you another 2.5%. So you'll get a 4.5% raise. And I said, I understand that. But at the time, I was making 20% less because of my age in the position I was in, even though I was putting out the work. And so once I had that conversation and that discussion, and this discussion went on for 6 months, and realized there was no budging, that I was like, well, then I'm going to go somewhere that values me. And that is how I progressed in my career from generalist to CHRO in 6 years.
So, What was your industry in that role? Because it sounds like you were still in the military where it was all year based, and there's a scale and exactly 20 years from now what you're going to earn, but that's normally not corporate America. So what type of industry was that?
So that was a beverage manufacturing industry.
Interesting.
Yeah. All right, so I've got a couple of things we have to unpack before we go on to the other question. And that is, one of the things that you mentioned was your confidence, that you have this confidence. So I think, I forget exactly how you phrased it, something with conflict. But it stems from, you said you're not afraid to speak up, whether it's a coworker or your supervisor, and talk about something. Can you encapsulate for us, how did you get the confidence to actually do that? Like where did that confidence come from? Was it just from the military? Was it from your upbringing within your family? Like, because not everybody has that.
You're absolutely right. And I think there is a difference between, and I'm not saying people who, go up the ranks are all confident, but I think if you were to look as a sum whole, that there would be more confidence in that group. I think for that exact reason of being able to speak up. But to answer your question, I definitely think the military had a part of it for sure. I would say I think my upbringing had a part of it. I didn't grow up great, and everything I have, I had to work for. Like this is all me. But at the same time, like I said, once I realized what my value was, like we're all people. There's no one above or below us, right? Like we are all equals. So regardless whether you're talking to a CEO or you're talking to a janitor, there shouldn't be a different inflection of how you speak with people. So once I realized, like I said, my value, I was like, you know what? They put their pants on the same way I do, unless they jump two legs in at one time. But what's the worst they're gonna say? What's the worst that's gonna happen? Let's just say, all right, worst case scenario, I get in trouble or I get fired. Well, guess what? I'm gonna find somewhere else. I know my value, and that's scary. That's scary to take that leap of faith sometimes, for sure, because you got people to provide for. But I promise you, if you put the work in, it will work out.
What type of limitations do you think potentially employers who aren't really geared toward helping their employees grow, develop, and advance, what type of inhibitors do you think they place on individuals to keep them into that imposter syndrome mentality, into that negative thinking, I'm not good enough, I don't really know what my worth is? What do you think happens do you think that's like real in an organization, and do you think they do it consciously?
I think you could go either way. I think culture is the number one contributing factor to this situation as a whole. Now, I do think some employers do it intentionally. Absolutely, I've seen it. But others, I think, is ignorance. It's a lack of education. It's a lack of knowing. It's a lack of their subordinates speaking up. As an HR consultant, I speak with business owners and CEOs pretty much daily, right? And when I speak with them, they're like, you know what? Everything's good. Everyone's happy. Everyone's having a good time. But then when I speak with the employees, they're like, it couldn't be farther from the truth, but they're so afraid of repercussions and ramifications that they just go on acting like it's all okay. So, I think it would be a mixture of culture and ignorance.
Yeah. Okay, good. But I do think we can just recap for our listeners to say that, really developing a sense of self-confidence really starts with you understanding your worth and that you have value, which really is that second element of cohesion, which is about that I have value, I have meaningful work, I have purpose, I know what it is that I'm doing, and I know what my contribution, what value is. And I think what happens is self-confidence requires you, first of all, the word self helps you. It's an introspective sort of viewpoint. I think sometimes individuals are waiting for permission from other people to be good instead of recognizing that they are good. And you just manage humility with that understanding of who you are, because I think that's what really changes the difference from you being assertive or aggressive, is what level of humility are you applying in the situation. So you have a way to present your viewpoint, but not at a way that becomes disrespectful to the other person that you're speaking to, because then you create more conflict and more anxieties in the situation and tension than what you would if you would approach it as, let's have a meaningful conversation. I want to make sure that you hear where I'm coming from, and I want to respect you in your listening for that. So I think that's something that can help our listeners really kind of grasp around self-confidence. When I do coaching, it's amazing. Like just this past couple of weeks, I met with a couple of different individuals who were battling imposter syndrome. And it's really trying to figure out, like, how did they get there? How did they get to the I'm not good enough phase? Because I'm a little bit like you, Michael. I'm not afraid to have those conversations. Although it'd be nice if I were 6'7", but I'm not. So, but still having those conversations, because when I have them, I'm not trying to make the other person wrong. What I'm trying to do is express my viewpoint in a way that allows somebody to see something that they didn't see before.
So you're saying though that, you know, this can be a developed trait. I mean, we're saying that it's something that, you know, we can learn and everything, because I would say that I probably have a healthy, okay, but there's an element that healthy confidence comes from experience of accomplished, like of results, right? So, I mean, that's where you have to find the one where it's inflated, right? Because when I was early in my career, the story I've told before is that I had been what I was considered being fast tracked. I was 21 years old, having 25 people report to me on a project, and went to the plant manager's office and wanted to ask him out to lunch. And the next day, 3 levels of management had me in the office trying to find out why I tried to talk to him without their permission. For me, it was I'm not going to be told who I can not talk to, right? From their perspective, it was possibly ego, possibly corporate structure, possibly because they were German company, like all those factors. Troy and I have had this discussion at times, like, could it have been done differently? Sure. Would I change it? I don't know. But like, it was like, why? Because my mindset was, why should I not be able to talk to somebody? But yet, I mean, I didn't even have, I just I wanted to ask the guy to lunch, right? And I think that really made fearful. So I think that also could be an ego, like a shattering to somebody that's like, you're stepping around me or something like that.
Absolutely. I mean, just think about it. If you're a relative 21 years old, you haven't had much work experience, and all of a sudden the conditioning that you're receiving is don't speak unless you're spoken to, or don't speak unless I tell you. Or like my dad would sometimes tell me, Troy, when I want you to have an opinion, I'll tell you. So, you know, it kind of falls into that area. But the important thing is recognizing that each of us has worth, each of us has value, that we're going to stand on that value, and that, yes, it's great when others will reaffirm the value that we have. But as long as we're not going after it egotistically, then I think we stand in our value and we're not afraid to share what that value is. And much of sharing that value is allowing the individual we're talking to have some form of self-discovery. And that's a whole nother topic altogether that we can talk about, how self-discovery helps with self-confidence and getting our message across and reducing conflict. But I think as I'm putting this together in my mind is it's almost like this creative thinking process that we go through. We have to be afraid to be wrong. Like you have to be like, I'm going to go into the conversation, but I'm going to know that there's a possibility I could be wrong. So I'm going to go into the conversation anyway, and I'm going to respect others during that conversation. And I'm not going to take no as the last answer. And I think that's, Michael, what I've heard you talk about were those 3 things. So for the folks listening today, wanting to know a little bit about self-confidence and what would they do to really practice that self-confidence, is they have to be willing to be wrong. They have to keep going at it, even if they get the answer no. And they have to make sure that those conversations are very respectful. Like if you get to the point where you're like a volcano ready to explode, that's not the time to have a meeting. There is no going to be self-confidence in that meeting at all. That's just going to be railroading over people. And you need them to want to listen to you. And so how you treat them through that listening process will be so important.
Michael,
Yeah.
how do you prepare your mindset to go from generalist to CHRO in the 6 years? Like, what did you do? Because you didn't have experience, and military is one thing. It's like, okay, I got a lot. The military HR is like, okay, here's your position. We didn't interview for it, but you're going to do this, because we need your body, right? So, like, what did you have mindset wise to get to have that climb up the ladder?
So to be honest, I've always been a very ambitious person. I've always wanted to do more, and it's not for the sake of notoriety. It's not for the sake of fame or fortune. I've just always felt from a young age that I had the potential to be pretty much what I wanted to be. So when I got out of the military and I started at that generalist level, you got to remember they don't talk to generalists normally the best, right? But I just got yelled at for 3.5 years, so I don't want to put up with this for even more, like that. I was forced to do that. And so my mindset was like, you know what? I need to surround myself with people smarter than me. I need to be okay with the uncomfortable situations. I need to know that I am not the hottest thing since sliced bread. Like, I need to do research. I need to be the one that's in the books. I need to be doing the work because if you're going to keep being what you are, like, that's fine. But in order to rise above and to move and to develop and to grow, like, you have to be intentional. You have to make those changes. And was it hard? Absolutely. Did I see myself being here, right now, if you were to ask me 10 years ago? Absolutely not. But just with that, taking those things, taking those hits, and just every time you get knocked down, not looking at it as, hey, I failed, but hey, guess what? I just found out another way I can get knocked down. I'm not going to do this again. Like, you have to be okay taking the hits. You have to be okay with that.
Exactly, because the quality of your life will be determined not by the successes or failures that you have, but how you handle them.
Mhm.
I want to share one of the exercises that I've talked many times over, and that helped me get there, because your brain cannot separate your memory and imagination. So I learned to visualize conversations and go through things. Like, I've been asked many times, why am I so confident in doing events for the first time that have all these moving pieces? And it's not the first time that I've done the event. It may be the first time I've done it in the real world, but I've visualized 50 different scenarios and everything. So visualization, like early on, after I left corporate America and helped start a company, we were in sales, and we role played sales calls so much that it wasn't like it was the first time I heard this rebuttal or whatever. So for me, that's a way you can actually you have confidence because you've handled all those things in the past, even though you have no real world experience to speak of. So, I would encourage everybody to understand the power of visualization, because it's accepted in sports, right? One of the best visuals for that is the bobsledding team, right? You see them in the Olympics, and they're all together, and you see them practicing which turn they're going to go to, right? And we understand that visualization is key in sports, but it works in every area of your life, even in business.
Yeah.
I think what you just said just now was crucial, and that's role play, right? So if you're wanting, for anybody listening out there, but if you're wanting to have that conversation, if you're wanting to prepare yourself to do that, then there's three things you need to do. One is you definitely need to role play, and even honestly, I would find do it with someone you care about and you're close with first, so it's a little bit more comfortable. But then you need to find a third party, and you need to practice this. You got to practice you got to have emotional intelligence and active listening. So when you're having a conversation, it's very important to say, hey, I heard you say this. Is this what you meant? Because there's so many times when you're having a conversation, if you don't clarify that, it's very easy to take something the wrong way. It's almost like when you're reading a text from somebody, right? You're like, you visualize and you hear that in your head, like, oh man, they're mad at me, or oh man, this or that, but you don't really know, right? So it's important to fully understand and to be cognizantly aware of what they're trying to say, because maybe they're not the best communicators either. And from my experience, a lot of people in leadership positions and up the hierarchy, they don't know how to talk to people, right? So then it's even worse, because then it feels like you're being demasculated or demeaned, or they're talking down to you, when maybe they were put in that position and no one ever taught them how to get there.
Yeah, perspective is important. So you talked about the term active listening. So can you just in a very short few words tell us what does active listening mean?
Of course. So again, active listening is kind of like what I said, it's repeating back what you heard. Because it's very easy to have a conversation, especially if you're going through a corrective action or a pit, or you're having a hard conversation and you're hearing these people talk, but you're not actually listening, right? It's like if you're going down the street and you see, you know, 10 flowers and one weed, your focus is on the one weed, you focus on the negative. So unless you completely understand and you're intentional of, hey, this is what I heard, is this what you meant? And even if
Yeah.
it is what they meant, they might be like, hey, this is what I meant, but I apologize that it came off in that way. I did not mean to communicate it in that regard. Because a lot of people aren't intentionally mean, right? They're not going to intentionally try and put you down. There are people out there, but as a some whole, that isn't the intentionality.
Yeah, and I just can't tell you enough. And we really try to make sure that our these podcasts aren't too salesy. But I just have to say that you have validated and spoke to so much of the material that Ben and I put into the Becoming a Cohesive Leader book. And like, thank you for that validation. I mean, it makes me feel good. We never talked to you before the book when we did a lot of research, but you're just now another data point to help us reaffirm that what you're speaking to is the information that we've covered in the book. We've talked about cohesion, we've talked about self-confidence, we talk about reimagining negative thinking. So really super with that. So there's a couple things here as we get ready to close out for our session with you. We'd like to know what steps have you taken to actually make sure that you don't do that again?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that one more time for me? I
Oh,
apologize.
oh, sure, no problem. So to close out for this one portion of our segment, I'd like you to tell us like what steps are you taking to make sure that you don't do this again?
I mean, honestly, I think a lot of it, what you already said, was ego and being humble and realizing that regardless of the amount of success, the amount of wealth, the amount of fame that you achieve in life, that again, you are just a person. So, I don't know if this is okay to say on this podcast or not, but it might be but I'm a man of faith. Okay. And my ego is to exalt God only. So, am I a human and do I make errors? Absolutely. But I do have to do daily checks with myself to ensure, hey, all these conversations that you had today, did you have those conversations with love? Did you have those conversations with care and compassion? So, I think it's important that regardless of how far you go, what you do in your life, that again, like we're all people. We're all going through things. There's things that people are going through that you have no idea. Like they're fighting battles that you can't even imagine. So like my biggest thing, and when I talk to anybody, is just be kind. Be kind.
I love it. And just for clarification, because I have to go into coaching mode, is there's a difference between being nice and being kind. Being nice is telling people something that you think they want to hear, and you may not necessarily be telling them everything. So it's almost what I call in our Southern culture, bless your heart moment. But when you're kind, you tell people the truth, but you do so in a way in which they can hear it. So it's not like I run over you with the truth, but I'm going to make sure that the truth is a part of what I'm sharing with you. And if I need to tell you that things aren't working well, then I want to be able to be as free to tell you that as I would that things were great. And oftentimes we confuse the issue of niceness and kindness. And if we think about it from the fruit of the spirit, as you talked about from a faith perspective, that kindness is really about knowing that sometimes people need to hear difficult information as well as they need to be encouraged. So I think that was a really good point, and I'm really, really glad that you brought that together. So we're going to ask you for a question here in a moment. So just going to give you a second to think about it. Like, what is something that you'd like to ask us that that we'd be able to share with you? But I want to talk with this little part because we're really trying to help make sure that our listeners get good quality information. So we have an AI-powered book bot called Carl that comes with every time that person purchases the book. So we ask Carl information to help out. So Carl has given 6 things that a person can do if they are trying to approach their boss for a promotion or for a raise. And so basically, so what Carl reminds us that we've included is that you have to commit to continuous improvement, demonstrate that you are committed to innovation and to adaptation, that you will adapt to what's happening in the environment, show that you can think strategically and contribute ideas beyond your immediate responsibilities, be a proactive agent of change, meaning that you promote ideas or suggestions for problems and not just bring them up for people to try to figure out, communicate thoughtfully. You have definitely helped us with that conversation today about the respect and the ego and humility and all those issues that need to come into it. You want to make sure that you avoid showboating and focus on collective success when speaking publicly. Seek feedback. Make sure that you're asking your boss regularly. So don't wait until, hey, 1 week before I want to apply for a promotion or a raise. Actually be actively seeking feedback all along with your employer. Whether you like your employer or not, whether you like your supervisor or not, get the feedback. Guaranteed that individual has feedback. And what we've also seen happen is that when an individual, if they dislike their supervisor, asks for feedback on a continual basis, it changes the relationship between the supervisor and the individual who's asking for the feedback. And regardless of whether the feedback might have been delivered maybe not quite so nicely, take it in stride. You're connecting with the supervisor. You're listening to what the supervisor has to say and makes a difference. And then the last thing is think like a boss. Adopt a mindset that challenges existing norms and proposes innovative ideas. Volunteer for opportunities that allow you to demonstrate your leadership qualities.
I mean, I agree with all of that. I mean, I think the things you mainly hit on are innovation, change, and feedback, right? Like
Yeah.
that are the things that we have to be comfortable with. And when you think about it, those things are hard to be comfortable with. You know, some people don't like change. Some people don't like technology. People don't like where everything is going. They don't like getting feedback because it'll hurt their feelings. But once they get over the fact of feelings and focus on the facts, then they can really take what's happening to them and they can utilize it to grow and develop and to traject themselves into a better place.
Yeah, super, super. All right. So as we kind of close out, we'd like to know, what question would you like to ask Ben or I?
Yeah, so I think innovation is such a innovation and like unique approaches. And as y'all wrote the book and y'all are talking about cohesive leaders, what would you say is probably the most unique or innovative piece of advice that y'all have for leaders in order to become better?
Ben, what do you think?
From what we've put together, I would say the thing that makes the biggest difference in someone's journey is the mindset of actually removing and squashing the negative thinking. We call it the ants, squashing the ants, automatic negative thinking. And we go into this topic in the book, but there's a big movement to say, okay, positive mindset, do all this positive. But all the data and in my own life, I've learned that the quicker you are to not dwell and hold captive those negative thoughts, the sooner you are to have a mindset that's more prepared for growth. So that is my biggest thing, is understanding that piece of it. And there are tools to make you that easier, but just being aware that less negative is more beneficial than an overabundance of positive.
And what was that acronym again?
Squashing the ants, automatic negative thoughts.
There we go. Good. So I decided to defer to Carl and see what Carl would think on unique advice that he would provide. And so here are the things that Carl thought. He said, first of all, that you should seek the truth. Okay, Michael, you said that. Are they seeking the truth? Oh, show humility. Number 2 item. Humility involves putting others before yourself, keeping your ego in check, and accepting acknowledgments with a calm spirit. It includes recognizing your strengths and weaknesses, listening to others, practicing gratitude, admitting mistakes, showing empathy, being teachable, serving others, and practicing self-reflection. Dude, we kind of like covered this. Oh my gosh. He says, be authentic, So you want to avoid pretending that you know everything. Know what you know, and what you don't know, ask or seek information, and adopt a growth mindset. Approach leadership with a mindset focused on motivating, influencing, and enabling others to succeed. Be open to new ideas and strive to excel in your role.
Awesome. Mic drop, but these are too expensive. So
Yeah,
let's not
so
do that.
pretend mic drop. There we go.
That's
Good.
great.
Yeah, it's great.
We talked about all of that, and it was organic and genuine, and I'm just so honored that y'all had me as a guest today, and I just think the conversation was phenomenal, and I really appreciate the opportunity.
Well, Michael, thank you so much for being our guest. It's exciting what you've been able to share, and we had a great little experience.
And I'll just say it's going to be in the captions and wherever you're listening to this or watching this, but you can go to powerupguide.com and you can get access to Carl there. So if you want to ask and have this book bot, we call him, or a coach as well, that can help you ask these questions to, and you'll get some of those same responses. But it all depends on what you ask, and you're going to get something different every time. So it's great. All right. Thanks.
Well, and as we close all of our Cohesion Culture programs with this simple mantra, we remind everyone who's listening, you don't have to know everything.
You just need to be teachable.